Everyone, welcome to our platform of Our More in Care. I'm Moara, your host. Thank you for joining me today on our live stream. I am just going to add Ash. Hello. Hi Ash,
Oh,
how are you going?
I'm good. I'm good, Mo. How are
Thank
you?
you so much. Good. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our platform of Our More
Yeah.
in Care. So Ash, why don't you tell us a little bit about your professional background and where you came from and
Yeah.
how you've come to encounter the big world that is NDIS?
It is indeed a big world. I'm a mechanical engineer turned social worker and pretty much worked in two hospitals, mainly in rehab hospital, Fiona Stanley, working with people with acquired brain injury and I wanted something else and through a friend, obviously, I started working with a special support coordination organization in which you provided amazing training. Yeah, it was just a whole different world. But I think we can go into that later. I'm sure you'll uh, ask more about it later. But yeah, no, it was more kind of clinical social work. I mean, it's just I guess dealing with numbers and equations to or Excel spreadsheets to then dealing with people, but more in a clinical setting where it's all about discharging people, meeting the quota, reporting to the consultant on a daily basis saying, yep, this is how much we have achieved. Yep, we can get this person discharged today, or we're waiting on this, we're waiting on that. And to actually community working with people with disability. So, yep, that's pretty much been my professional journey. And I'm not, I'm taking a break now. I'm actually in Istanbul right now, taking a year-long break, over a year and a half. Yeah, so that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Hope people watching are not going to be discouraged from coming to work with the NDIS. No, so it was pretty hectic working
Yeah.
at the hospital and having to discharge people, I guess, quite quickly
Yeah.
because of the demand on hospital beds. And so, what was that like? What was your introduction to NDIS through the mainstream, through the hospital system? What kind of training or kind of teaching did they give you? And did you feel confident in delivering that in your role?
Yeah, look, I mean, I was kind of thrown into the deep end almost. So my idea of actually working in hospital was a lot different before I started, while I was at university. But as soon as I started, I found out, look, we're kind of dealing with all these different entities and organizations that we really have no power over, like NDIS. I mean, working in ABI, working in rehab meant the patient stayed in rehab facility for so long, so they could stay for a month to 3 months, and within that time frame, depending on their recovery, we have to kind of and most of the patients, not most, pretty much all of them, it was a newly acquired disability, so they were perfectly healthy, normal people going about their business. So one day they probably had a stroke or something happened. So in that case, for me, working as a social worker in that setting meant we had to get them access into NDIS and set up a planning meeting, have a planning meeting, and leading up to the planning meeting, kind of gauging their function with the assistance of like physios and OTs, getting them to write reports, So there's this, plethora of things we needed to do, and literally two of us managing like this, big ward. So it was really full on, and we didn't really receive much of a formal training working in this setting, which I thought was um, ridiculous. Like I thought it was just plain insane. You're kind of going into the dark. You really don't know. You're this fresh graduate. Or regardless of how long you've actually worked in the industry for, NDIS was quite new then, and people didn't know. I mean, even my senior social worker didn't really know much about this. So yeah, the training we got was limited. It was just on the job training. There was actually an NDIS liaison officer in the hospital, so that was the main point of contact for us in terms of getting this information, but we didn't get any formal training.
Wow, and do you think, like in hindsight now, looking at, and we'll talk a little bit about your experience as a specialist support coordinator, but
Yeah.
looking back now, if you had had some training, and if you had your SSC, so your specialist support coordinator
Yeah.
knowledge as a social worker, do you think that you would have been able to provide a better a better service to the people, to the patients, and do you think they would have had a better outcome of their plans?
I think so. I certainly think so. I think in a good way. I think, um, I guess, to some extent, given that it was the hospital setting, a lot of these plans when they were coming out of the hospital was just an interim plan. So because their function, no one knew how they would be functioning out in the community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it was just really a 6 month interim plan. So in a way, even if we didn't get the most, I guess, best plan for the patient, I think there was a room to make that error go right. So in that way, I think, yes, training in any way, I mean, for anyone is definitely needed, and especially working in community. I think that's even more, that's even more relevant, I guess, given now the plans are usually 2 to 3 year long, 3 years long, as opposed, or even 1 year. And it's definitely not 3 months or 6 months like someone who's getting, discharged from the hospital. So, um, but yeah, training is essential. Absolutely, yes, training is essential. But yeah, but I guess given the context I was in,
You
I
did the
think
best. You did the
I could do.
best you could with what you had.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Yeah,
and yeah,
had to work
I
with what I got.
definitely.
Yeah, what I had. Yes.
Yeah, I think that being in the hospital setting, obviously NDIS does prioritize those cases. But do you think that the social workers' expectation of, I guess, providers on the outside was a bit unrealistic? Do you think that, looking back now, what was your experience? Tell us, give us some juicy details about your frustrations and your ins and outs.
Hey, Mo, how long do you want to go for? Like, I mean, I literally sit here talk about that the whole day. But look, in terms of especially working in a clinical setting, not having any idea of how things get done outside, a lot of the time, just like bluffing. At least that's what I felt. Even with my other colleagues, we're just like, yep, this is what we need, and we would just be sending emails, or we'll be speaking to providers. I remember calling this provider and telling them, hey, we want this person the 24-hour care discharged in like 12 hours, and they're like, well, it doesn't work like that. And I'm like, the funding is here. um, I just thought, oh, maybe, they can somehow make it work. Again, it was more in the initial days, but yeah, work. I guess people working in clinical settings really, unless if they have some experience working in the community, does not really know what happens in the community as much. I'm not talking about everyone. I'm just saying in general. Usually that's what happens, and same goes in the community as well. They don't really know the pressures in a clinical setting in terms of the discharge time frames. There's some providers that would take on a client and promise that, hey, yep, we'll get everything done, or get everything set by this date, but then there's nothing, you hear nothing from them, and you're just left in the dark wondering, hey, what's happening with these guys, like, and you have to constantly chase them up. So I think it goes both ways. Yeah, there is definitely a lack of understanding between the people who work in the clinical setting, um, which I experienced on both ends. So when I worked as a social worker, I had since I didn't have any experience in the working in the community. Um, I didn't know about a lot of things, and my expectations were largely misplaced. And I experienced the same on the other end, working, SNSSD and having a lot of clients, being referred from the hospital, and their expectations of me was, grossly different. And so I got to experience both sides. So I think you're right. I think probably the only I think only closing. I mean, the only way to maybe close that bridge is by providing more training and clinicians having a better understanding of the role of SSCs, and also um, how providers in the community work, and also training being provided to SSCs in the community as to what is actually expected of them, in terms of actually taking on maybe a hospital patient who's needing to be discharged. What are some of the things that needs to be done? Because with hospital, they're so fast paced. They might not give you all the details. Sometimes you have to push for things also for that discharge to happen. There might be some, and not all hospitals work the same as well. Sorry if I'm taking too long to answer this, but not all
No.
hospitals work the same. Some acute hospitals, they work amazingly. Like they have a proper system in place. So like maybe RPH or Fiona Stanley, they have a really good system in place. But certain other hospitals, secondary, not so much a tertiary hospital, they probably don't have a good system in place. The social workers there might not know, like, in Greylands, they don't know that they have an NDIS liaison officer. So I worked with a social worker at Greylands who did not know that they had an NDIS liaison officer to assist with, discharging their patients. And I had to tell them, it's like, hey, you have someone, why are you coming to me? Go tell them. They have their special, pathway to escalate the matter, I mean, more than what I can do. So, so it's kind of educating each other, but definitely a lot of training, and, would bring about some understanding. Definitely, yeah.
When you say about the NDIS liaison officer, did you find them to be helpful? Did you find them to have the right knowledge and have the right skills to be working that role?
Again, hospital, man, it's the same
Don't
thing,
worry,
man.
I'm not going to make you name and shame.
Yeah. Let's do a top 5, no, top 2, and then the bottom 2 hospitals. No, I guess, yeah. See, it's again, how well structured they are. Some hospitals, they have and I can say this for rehab at Fiona Stanley, they have everything, well documented. They have, if someone overstays, by their discharge date, or they know they will be overstaying their, anticipated discharge date, they can escalate that matter, and they will do it quickly, and they can get things done. Um, the NDIS liaison officer, she's quite proactive, so, but certain other hospitals, in my experience, didn't have that. And it was actually up to me to, get a letter from, for example, I had a client in Greylands, and I had to pretty much get the client psychiatrist to write a letter with an anticipated discharge date, so that I can submit it to NDIS and then say, hey, can you expedite the planning meeting process? Can you please do that? Which I had to sort of push for. Otherwise, they would, it would be, and that person was there for like almost 3 years, and everything was just so much more delayed, even with an NDIS liaison officer at the hospital. So yeah, so I think it varies from department to department, I guess. I don't know everything about every hospital, but in my experience, at least, Not all hospitals are the same, um, at least in my
Not all
experience.
need NDIS training.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, some of those, I can send you a list, and you know it better than I do as well. Some of those hospitals definitely need a lot of training. So
So speaking of training, when you decided to come onto the provider land and become a
yeah.
specialist support coordinator, what was the difference between doing the 2-day intensive support coordinator training versus the training that I did with you?
Well, the 2 day training was just sunshine and rainbows. It's like, hey, this is your job. You go here, you do this, you fill out this form, you send it, and you get this, and this is it. And your client is happy, you're happy. Things do not work in that way. I can tell you that. Do not work in that way. So, I mean, oh man, the training, it was amazing. I mean, you learn a lot of basics, so I'm not saying there's no value in that training at all. But yeah, you learn the basics. That's as far as you're going to get. And you're dealing with complex individuals, you're dealing with multiple organizations, and you're dealing with, as I said, NDIS with no set, I guess, timeline. I mean, time frame with a lot of their processes. There is some KPIs around certain things, but still there's huge delays, and you're dealing with people, vulnerable people with need, with who's depending on this funding for their needs to be met. So it's not a straightforward process. So the training did not address any of that. They did mention about a change of circumstance and how to complete that form, but yeah, that's as far as you're going to get. You really need a good mentor, someone who's experienced in the industry, and they know how to, I guess, because I guess everyone's need and how I guess everyone's situation is so different, and like the approach you need to take needs to be quite tailored to that individual, because there is some people, they need funding but they can wait, they're happy, they're not in an urgency, or same thing with hospitals, they might need, someone might need to be discharged, but it's not imminent, it's not needed like in a month or in a week. So everyone's situation is so different, from people to their informal supports, to their formal supports, to their living environment. They might need some, I guess, some, ramps put in, or whatever it might be. There's so many things to consider, and obviously a lot of other, other professionals like OTs and physios might, need to be involved as well in that process. So everyone's situation is quite unique, and I guess the approach one should take, it should be very tailored to that individual. So and that means high quality training, and understanding of the system, and how you can, you might not get the funding in the right pockets, but if you have an in-depth understanding of how you can, use that funding to your client's benefit, then you're winning. Then you've actually been trained, should I say? Yeah. So
You're
yeah,
using your knowledge to use your plan flexibly to implement the scheme appropriately.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So would you say that my training was not rainbow and sunshine?
actually, to be honest, like, I liked your training, because I don't know, I could see how I can, kind of maneuver like things to achieve the outcome. No, no, seriously, like that. It was so eye opening in a lot of ways, and it didn't happen in one day or 2 days. It was just like, I guess going through, I guess, a number of scenarios, like, and it was not like hypothetical. I mean, they were my clients, and I was in a sticky situation, and I reached out, and you always had an answer, and it almost kind of remolds you the way that you think, right? I mean, because all this sunshine and rainbow type of training, plus working in clinical setting where everything is kind of what do you call it, almost a checklist, itemized, where you're like, yep, check, check, yep, did you do that, did you do this, did you send the form through? So it's almost like it's methodical, right? Methodical, that's the word that I'm looking for. And same thing with the 2-day training. It's also, it teaches you to think very methodical. I'm not saying it's bad. You need the basic knowledge, but you need to be able to think around. You need to. It's kind of cliche, but think outside the box. And I was able to do that. I mean, obviously, with your help, in with a lot of my clients, when I was actually in sticky situations. I mean, there's been so many, and that, like, so many. I think if I check my call log for last year and early this year too, you would be on my top, call list. That's kind of weird, I mean, that sounds like I don't have life outside of work, which I probably didn't have much, um, but yeah, no, seriously, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you guys. For those watching, Ash is an incredible specialist support coordinator, so he's probably not giving himself enough credit. He helped a lot of people and he was one of the best. So it was a pleasure to work with you, and I'd love to have you back once you've had enough of Turkey and Europe. And I know that my participants would be in safe hands because, again, you are someone who is empathetic and you understand the scheme and the flexibility, but most of all, you know how to implement it. So you're not waiting 6 months for a review when it's things that you can start actioning straight away, when you're not just waiting on other people to do that. And I think that's really important in this day and age where things are they are urgent for people that can't leave the house or need some short-term accommodation or some support. They only have limited hours of OT and physio. They can't wait around. They need
Or
things
a
action.
mammoth, or a mammoth task of actually getting an SDA. So
Oh, guys, Ash got an SDA. You don't
no,
understand.
three or two or three. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was, not one. Hey, come on, man.
You got 3 SDAs
Yeah,
approved. That is phenomenal.
yeah.
One
No,
of the
but
best
hey,
SDAs
you
in
are
Richmond.
part of all three of them. And I don't know if you remember, we had a saying, when I was kind of stuck in a situation. This is kind of corny again, but I used to tell you this. It's like I would ask myself, what would Mo do? WWMO. So, uh, MD. My bad. MD. Yeah, I can't spell apparently, but
Yeah.
yeah, no. What would Mo do? Yeah, it's just no, definitely good training. With because it's not straightforward. It's not straightforward as people make it to be. It's not straightforward as to how NDIS make it to be. It's definitely and I think the thing that motivated me to learn. I mean, obviously you were super supportive, so I did feel very comfortable to come to you at any time. I used to just text you, or if you were free, you would text me back or call me back straight away, which was really nice. And but the other thing that motivated me was I was working for people who couldn't really speak for themselves. When there were really people with severe complex disabilities, they were bound to bed, or they couldn't speak. So I guess it is a very rewarding work, and we are working with agencies that are trying to cut funding, or are very difficult to navigate around. It's not easy to navigate NDIS, and working with other providers. So you're pretty much the middle person, not an advocate for the client, as NDIS say, but you are in a way. Yes, you are. That they make it sound like you are not, but you are almost, you know, you're pretty much the middle person. You're pretty much the person who keeps track of what's happening in the client's life. You know, are there enough informal supports, formal supports, and to make that formal supports go all year round, all for the planned period, is there enough funding, or do the necessary steps to make it last, or to, you know, get a new plan, or, you know, things can change at any time. So then, you know, you got to work out a whole other set of things, or their needs might change. They want to, so I don't want to name the client, but you know the client, you know, he wanted to move closer to his family, and he could, and he was living in this really not so accessible house, you know, not great, very old, and he got to move into an SDA home, you know, fully accessible, beautiful house with a courtyard, you know. So it's just, it's not only just funding and services, it's also increasing quality of their, you know, their life and experience. And you are the one who's really doing it, because the providers, they're, you know, they're kind of providing one individual service, and they're not really looking at every other, you know, parts of the, you know, the picture or the map. You know, you're kind of holding the entire, you know, um, the collage. I think, you know, you're kind of standing back and making sure, yep, everything is in place, everything is in working order. What more can I do? How can I make this person's quality of life improve? And while and while thinking about that, and still, you know, managing the NDI side of things and funding, and, you know, then putting up with some providers and putting them in their place as well. Sorry for my language. I, you know, I really think so, because you are also informally, you know, providing your knowledge. You're passing it on to other providers as well. So it's not only beneficial to the client and their families, it's also beneficial for other providers, because you are training them in a way, informally, not formally, but you're passing, you know, some providers, they might be like, oh, we can't do that. It's like, and then I can just send them an email from NDI saying, actually, yeah, you can do that. And they're like, oh, we didn't know that. And I hope when I see those emails, I hope, you know, they've changed their process, you know, changed their process for all the other thousands of clients they have, you know, not just one client of mine, you know. So it's not only essential for you to, for your client, or, you know, for your career, but you're kind of like making, you know, it's almost a domino effect, I believe. If you have good training, good knowledge, you know, if you know how to really navigate the system, yeah, you're helping a lot of people, and you feel good, man. And I felt good, and thank you.
You make me so proud
Don't
listening to
cry.
all that knowledge and all that
Don't cry.
passion, because I know that it's really frustrating. And, you know, when it is a case by case, everyone's so different. So
Yeah.
for me to hear you saying that you have that confidence to, you know, implement the scheme properly, and that you've helped so many people, and that you're so passionate about it, and that even though you're in Turkey, you haven't given up, makes me really, really happy.
Yeah. Well, you know, I haven't actually read anything about NDIS or heard the word NDIS in like good 4 weeks now. So yeah, I think we've talked enough for for the next four more weeks, I reckon.
Next
But
4 weeks, and then we'll come together again. I'll give you all the updates of the NDIS. Ash, thank
look
you
forward to it.
so much.
I
You've
need
been
a
amazing.
refresher when I come back. I
Yes,
would
I'll give
definitely
you
need
a
one,
refresher course.
because they keep changing. That's the other thing, right? I mean, they always keep. There's always, you know, changes, and if you're not, and it's not easy to keep, you know, up to date with, you know, with all the new changes, you know, legislative and otherwise, you know, there's so many changes.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I know when I come back, which is going to be end of next year, things will be entirely different. So it's almost going to be like, you know, starting from the bottom again, you know, to some extent. You know, I mean, I still would have the basics, so it won't be that much of a difficult task, but yeah, I would definitely
And
would
you
need your
have
help.
me, so And you have me. And
Thank you. Really
ready.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ash. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and we really appreciate it. And we hope to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to, yeah, look, good luck with your company and I wish you all the best. And hey, so many people know, um, how incredible you are. So all the best. And I hope, everyone reach out to you and your services and look forward to seeing you and, being trained by you. That sounds so bad, but yeah, being trained. I need some training uh, when I come back, definitely. But yeah, look forward to it. Thank you.
I look forward to having you back in my team. So thank you. Enjoy your time. We'll see you when you're back.
See you later. Thanks, Mo.
Bye.
Bye.